Hi, my name's Aaron Curry, and I'm going to tell you about a high demand and low competition opportunity to make £25,000 of profit from just one house, starting with none of your own money. And I'm going to show you how you can manage it all with just 5 minutes a week. Now, I know that sounds unbelievable, and I know that sounds too good to be true. And that's exactly what I stumbled upon when I became an accidental landlord in this area in 2015. What happened next exceeded all of my property expectations, all of the stuff I'd learned about property in the past. And as a 20-year property veteran, I didn't think that anything could surprise me anymore. And this shocked me because of the huge profits with virtually no work when this is set up properly. The results were so good that I went and did some digging to find out if this was a fluke or if I should start buying more of these high cash flowing houses. And what I discovered is a booming trend. And right now, you can jump on this booming trend when there is virtually no competition. No competition. This is your chance to step into almost the DeLorean. If you watch your films and you like your films, you can go back in time and buy Apple stock back in 1980 before it boomed. We're literally at the start of a really massive boom in this area. So just think how that would transform the quality of your life right now. What I'm going to share with you today is that powerful. Now, before we go any further, I'd just like to explain why the video quality is not what I would want it to be. You know, we're starting to come out of lockdown as I record this, but we still need to keep our distances from each other. So I'm not working with my videography yet. So it's literally just me with these massive headphones on, sat in front of a webcam speaking to you. So if you want to know about a high demand and low competition opportunity to make £25,000 profit from one house, starting with none of your own money, and how you can manage it all in 5 minutes a week, and the information is more important to you than the video quality, then you're going to love this 4-part video series. So let's start by taking you back to 2011 when I bought my first ever dream house. You see, ever since I was 8 years old, I'd wanted a massive house. My dad was a university lecturer, and one of his colleagues, you know, my mum and dad were quite tight. We lived in an okay house, don't get me wrong, but they were quite tight. They liked saving. It's all about saving. And one of his colleagues had a summer party at his house. And we went to this summer party, and it was just a massive house. It was gigantic, and the garden was just amazing. And I just distinctly remember that day, there was this whole gang of kids, me included, my two younger sisters, but this whole gang, maybe 15 kids. And we literally spent the whole day running around the house, running around the garden. And it was one of the most immense days of my life or of my childhood that I can remember. And then I remember getting in the car to drive home. And I'm sat, you know, when you're a child and you're sat in the back of the car, you're exhausted, a little bit groggy from a day. We probably stayed later than we should have done, all those things. And I hear my mum and dad speaking in the front of the car, and they're like saying, those people are idiots. I'm like, well, what do you mean, mummy? What do you mean? Well, they have a massive house, she explains. It's an 8-bedroom house that sleeps 16 people, and there's just 4 of them living there. That house could have 4 families in it. My mum at the time, well, for 20 years, worked for a housing charity. And she saw the world through those eyes. So she always wanted to help other people. And she could never understand why people would spend their hard-earned cash on luxury purchases for themselves. She just didn't get that. She had a different perspective, a different way of looking at things. Now, I don't actually remember that much from my childhood, but I can still remember that house, and I can still remember that day, you know, just with joyful delight. It was just such an amazing day. And even my parents' kind of disparaging comments couldn't stop me from wanting that massive house with a huge garden. I just saw it as such an amazing thing to have and remembered it with such excitement. So it was always, always in my dreams. So once I became financially free, I made my childhood dream come true. Okay, we bought our dream house back in 2011. It was a big 6, we turned it to 8, it's a big 8-bedroom house with a massive, massive garden. And it was everything that my 8-year-old self wanted. I distinctly remember the first night we just moved in, boxes were everywhere, but we'd moved into the dream house. And I was sat at the time with what would have been my 7 or 8-year-old daughter, Georgia, sat next to me. And I remember, I had a couple of little drinks and I was looking out on the garden. I said, Georgia, do you know what? That's our garden. Do you see that tree? That's our tree. Do you see that tree? That's our tree. Do you see that tree? It was such a magical moment for me, and just sharing it then with my 7 or 8-year-old self, but it was my daughter. It was just amazing to have this massive garden. I was so excited. Now, after a few years, the dream actually started to collide with reality. We bought a house that was half an hour away from school. So it was taking us half an hour to drive to drop the kids, half an hour back, and then half an hour to drive to pick them up, and half an hour back. Now, you might think that's a small price to pay for your dream house and that dream garden and everything else. And it was a small price, but it began to grate on us over time. I was also half an hour from the office if I wanted to go in and see the team and spend time with them. So we decided we wanted to move back the 9 or 10 miles into Scarborough to live back in Scarborough. And there was a road, a really luxurious road, literally next to the school that the kids were going to school on. So that's where we decided we want to move. And that's where we found Dream House number 2. So Dream House number 2, really exciting for us. I put urgency into the deal, which meant that we got a better price on our new house, because I said, look, we'll get this done, we'll move. And I committed to it. When I find something that I want, I just go after it. So we committed to it. We got urgency. I did the deal. But the question was, what were we going to do with Dream House number 1? Now, before I tell you the answer to that, I need you to know that I hate selling property. I hate selling houses. And here's why. My first ever residential house in Osgerby, Scarborough, I bought for £42,500. Okay, it was a 3-bedroom bungalow, £42,500. And I sold it just a couple of years later, 2-3 years later, for £80,000, which sounds pretty cool. It doubled in value nearly. Now, I was a property investor at the time, so I knew that house prices go up over time, etc. But I didn't connect the dots between my investment portfolio and my residential portfolio. So for some reason, I sold it. So I sold the house for £80,000. 3 years later, the person that bought it from me, I actually got to know them. They spent about £10,000 on the house. So it's, you could say 90,000 they put into it. They sell it for £180,000 just 3 years later. If I'd have held on to it for another 3 years, I'd have made another 90 to 100,000, or even better, refinance it, drawn most of that out and kept it for the future rises. So I learned a really, really painful lesson. Never, ever sell your houses, and definitely never, ever sell your investment properties. Don't sell. So the problem with Dream House number 1, though, is it's too big and too expensive to work as a buy-to-let. And it's not going to make me profit if I run it as a buy-to-let. It's actually going to make me loss running this big house as a buy-to-let. And I don't want to turn it into an HMO. It won't work for an HMO for lots of reasons. It's out in a village, 10 miles from any town. It's just not going to work as an HMO. So I don't know what to do with it. And then I get this idea. I call up a company that specializes in renting large houses. Now, they looked at our house and they come back and they give me some projections for renting it out as a holiday let. And they gave us 2 different projections. They said the first is that this property will bring in revenue income over a year of £65,000 a year. And the second projection, which depends on the level of flexibility we can give them in terms of the bookings, is that they'll create a revenue of £85,000 a year. Now, those numbers sound amazing, and I'm completely skeptical at this point, as you can imagine. I knew nothing about holiday lets, and I was terrified that this wouldn't work, that we'd spend all the money to set it up as a holiday let, or we'd put the work in to set it up as a holiday let, and then it wouldn't work, and we'd lose a load of money. But we were buying our second dream house to be closer to the kids' school, and we needed to move fast. And I hate selling houses. So I decided to trust this company that specializes in renting large houses as holiday lets. And this company have been absolutely true to their word. They told me that the house would be rented for 44 weeks of each year on average. In reality, it's rented for at least 50 weeks every year since. In fact, over the last 5 years, the property has only had 6 empty weeks. So they could claim an average of 51 weeks a year if they wanted to. Now, obviously, COVID-19 put a dent in those statistics over the 3 months of COVID. But pre-COVID, the results blew my wildest expectations out of the water. And going forward, booking. Now COVID's lifted. People were immediately back in on July the 4th, July the 5th, bookings immediately. Their £85,000 income projection turned into a £90,000 income. So I'm absolutely delighted with the results. And all I can think of is I've got to get more of these houses. That's what I'm like. You know, if something works, you want more of it. And I want to know if this is beginner's luck. You know, after all, I didn't plan to do this. I became an accidental landlord in this area, an accidental holiday landlord. And I felt like I just got lucky because it was all an accident. So before I started buying more 8-bedroom houses, I wanted to know if these results were typical, if I could easily repeat them, and what was driving this demand. You know, I knew the buy-to-let sector, over 200 properties I've got in buy-to-let, but did I know this area? No. So I wanted to check out the demand. I wanted to make sure it was the right place to be. And what I discovered is a booming UK holiday trend. And the income sweet spot with high demand, and low competition. So first of all, let's take a look at the booming holiday trend and understand this. Multi-generational holidays are on the rise massively. You may have been on them yourself. Have you been with your parents or your kids on a joint holiday? In 2009, Thomas Cook conducted a holiday survey. Here's what they found. The number of families going away together or considering it in the future has risen from 57% in 2017 to 65% in 2019. That's more than a 10% increase. I know it's 8% in the stats, but more than a 10% increase in just 2 years. 65% of people considering going away as a multi-generational unit. What do you think that number will have risen to now in 2020 with the coronavirus crisis? Yeah, what's the impact likely to be with COVID-19? People more likely to want to spend time with their families? TUI's passenger survey in June 2019 suggests that 79% of young adults are choosing to holiday with their mum and dad. 79%. Virgin carried out a survey of 1,000 parents and 1,000 grandparents in 2019. And that shows that 70% of families have taken multi-generational holidays. The Virgin survey shows that 40% of grandparents admit that they enjoy the break far more with their kids and grandkids than if they went on their own. 40% of them. The Holiday Group First Choice also did research into multi-generational holidays in 2019. They found that 79% of those aged 20 to 30 are opting to take multi-generational holidays. 79%. Why? Saving money. 23% of them said it's because we save money. 18% of them said because we can afford to have multiple holidays in a year if we go with our parents for one of them. And being able to enjoy a more luxury getaway. 24% of them got to have a more luxurious holiday if they went with their parents. Plus 75% of parents are happy to contribute part or all of their children's holiday costs. First Choice uncovered something else you might find shocking. 20% of respondents, 20% of these 20 to 30-year-olds said they prefer to take a break with their parents than with their friends. Okay. And finally, a Travel Zoo survey revealed that 40% of multi-generational holidays are organized and paid for by the grandparents, 40% of them. So the booming property trend is multi-generational holidays, okay? Now, linked to that, the fact that grandparents used to go on holiday to Tunisia, to Turkey, to Morocco. That's the place these people used to go on holiday. And more often, before COVID-19, by the way, more and more often, they were choosing to holiday in the UK. They preferred to holiday in the UK. Add on top of that, lockdown has kept families apart for 3 months, which makes them want to spend time together that much more. The booming holiday trend leads us onto the income sweet spot. You see, when I say holiday let to my friends, and when I maybe say it to you to start with, they immediately think of a 2-bedroom chalet by the sea, or something small like that. That's a crowded market that misses this booming holiday trend. Why? Because a multi-generational family cannot all stay in a 2-bedroom chalet. Yeah, they could rent several chalets, but it's a challenge then to eat together. If it rains like it frequently does in the UK, they can't all be together during the day. They can't all sit together outside during the day. So 2-bedroom chalets are not what people are looking for. The income sweet spot with holiday lets is sleeps 16 plus. Sleeps 16 plus. Now, let me explain. With short-term rentals, both serviced accommodation and holiday let, you need to think about heads in beds. Heads in beds. How many heads are in the beds? That's the mantra that brings in the cash. Don't think about the number of bedrooms. Focus on the number of people that can sleep in that property comfortably. It needs to be a 4-star, a 5-star, a 4-tick, a 5-tick. How many can comfortably sleep there? The difference between bedrooms and the number of people that can sleep there will become clear in a moment. Now, with short-term rentals, the cash flow increases proportionately with the number of heads in beds. So 2 heads, 4 heads, 6 heads, 8 heads, 10 heads, it's increasing proportionally as you go along, okay? So the financial return and the money you get back increases proportionally with the number of heads in beds until you hit 16. That is the magic number. That is the sweet spot. Once your property sleeps 16 plus, 16 to 18 is the real sweet spot, the income and cash flow, it goes up exponentially. It's just absolutely crazy. You've got this proportionate line going up and it just goes crazy. Why is that? It's because there are so few properties like this. So few properties. You think about it. How many people build a new 8-bedroom house? They just don't get built. People aren't buying 8-bedroom houses, so builders don't build them. So there are so few 7-bedroom, 8-bedroom properties. So that is the low competition, high demand opportunity. There's a massive demand for it, but low competition because no one has these properties, and it's fueled by a booming holiday trend. It was already booming. Remember, the last 5 years before COVID, it was already booming. Booked 51 weeks of the year consistently. That's a booming trend. Now with COVID on top, people even less likely to want to travel abroad at all. Yeah, or definitely if you're older, these grandparents, do you think the grandparents are going to want to travel abroad and risk getting ill abroad? Now, why should you care? Why should you care? The reason you should care is because my dream house number 1, okay, which by the way is not the perfect house for this model. I was the accidental landlord, so it's not the perfect house, but it shows you how it works. It puts £30,000 a year on average of profit after all costs in mine and my wife's pocket. And it does that with me answering 1 or 2 WhatsApp messages a week. That is it. 1 or 2 WhatsApps that I have to reply to. That is the work that I do on this property. And it makes us £30,000 a year. Today I live 2.5 hours drive away from my house. So I literally can't do the work to run this mini hotel or whatever you want to call it, this property. The reason why you should care about this booming trend is that you can literally replace your salary with 1 house with only 5 minutes a week of your time. And as you're going to discover later in this video series, you can literally get started with none of your own money to get one of these investments. And you can replace your salary with only 5 minutes a week of your time once this is set up. So here's my question for you. If you could make £30,000 profit from 1 house and you could manage it all with just 5 minutes a week of your time, would you want to jump on a booming property trend? If you answered yes to that, then I'd like you to do a couple of things. First of all, make a public declaration to your family today, okay, or to your friends and your family today. You see, the more people you tell that you're going to do something, the more likely you are you're going to do it. You know that's true, don't you? If you tell them you don't want to let yourself down, you want to get it done. So I want you to tell them that you're going to go find a house and it's going to make you £30,000 profit from 1 house thanks to the booming multi-generational holiday trend. Tell them that that's what you're going to do. And in a couple of days, I'll tell you about the rundown B&B that I discovered that now makes me £25,000 a year, me and my wife Layla, with only 5 minutes a week of our time. And I'll show you the step-by-step process that I followed to identify that and to do that so that you can do the same thing. So I'm going to be sharing that again with you in a couple of days' time. Until then, look after yourself, look after the people that you love, invest with knowledge, invest with confidence, create financial freedom. I'll see you really soon. Thank you for listening.